Welcome to the NASCAR News Zone here this week for Motorsports Reports. My name is Phil, and we will be presenting all the key stories that we presented here over the week. The likes of the Brad Keselowski battle with Tyler Reddick, Darlington last week, Riley Herbst's issues with Connor Zillisch, Connor Zillisch and Cody Ware, and the situation with points based on their full-time competition in Cup. Darrell Waltrip's thoughts on the sport as they welcome back the alumni and drivers to watch, and 5 things from the race weekend last weekend. This and more, you can go and look at the info on the bottom to find the timestamps for each story. And for your motorsports news, NASCAR, IndyCar, and the like, tune into the Motorsports Reports and the Grip Strip podcast that I do with my co-host Josh. I find that appearing on all podcast platforms. While Brad Keselowski led the most laps, won both stages in Sunday's Goodyear 400 at Darlington Raceway, he was unable to hold off the advance of 2311's Tyler Reddick and prevent him from winning a 4th race out of 6 to start the 2026 Cup Series season. Contact was made. There was contact made with Tyler Reddick and 2 RFK cars. One, he had contact with Chris Buescher as well that caused a spin and a yellow. But Keselowski was quoted by Bob Pockrass of Fox Sports saying, "I was doing all I could to make his life bleep, and he was so much faster it didn't matter. That's how it goes." He made Reddick make contact on the pass for the win with 28 to go on Keselowski, the driver of number 6 Ford that he co-owns with Jack Roush and Fenway Sports Group. And they had to fade the electrical issues that Tyler Reddick had, and pit stop issues as well for the 45 team. Keselowski and a 6 team, Jeremy Bullins, the crew chief, called a great race, put themselves in position to possibly get that elusive first win in a couple of years. Keselowski was quoted further saying, "We didn't have the best car today, not compared to Tyler. Tyler drove a bleep of a race, and he's driving a rocket, and he's making it count right now. I think we got the most out of the day we were getting to get honest, but we scored a lot of stage points. 2nd place, 1st place loser, but that's okay. We're doing the things we need to do and making the most of the days we have." For Keselowski and for the RFK team, he performed very well, has moved himself into the top 10 of the chase standings, along with his teammate Chris Buescher. All 3 RFK cars running Greg Biffle throwbacks ran well at times during the entire event and were able to all finish in the top 15, showing once again that with this new short track rules package that the RFK organization has seemingly hit on some things that have made them pretty fast at a variety of racetracks, since this setup has already been used at 3 different racetracks, at Phoenix, at Circuit of the Americas, a road course, and then Darlington. It'll be used again this weekend at Martinsville, a track that Brad has been good at in the past, but not been the best for RFK. You have Priest, who's a modified driver, somebody who makes his name at these type of racetracks. So opportunity for RFK, opportunity for Brad Keselowski coming up here after a great weekend at Darlington to go and keep that momentum at Martinsville. For this and all your NASCAR and motorsports news, tune in here to the Motorsports Reports and also the Grip Strip podcast that I do with my podcast co-host Josh on all podcast platforms. Had 3-time Cup Series champion and 5th winningest driver in the history of the Cup Series, Darrell Waltrip, as someone who is not a fan of the current state of NASCAR. While he was a part of the Fox broadcast for the first time in many years due to it being alumni weekend at Darlington Raceway and being able to spend time with a lot of his friends and see people he hasn't seen in a while. He talked about some of his concerns and issues with the current schedule and the current car with Peter Strata, of NASCAR media member. When asked about how he felt if he would have missed being in the booth, Walltrip said, for a year or two I thought I would, but the last couple of years I think, no, I'm glad I'm not doing it. I'm glad I'm retired. He shared further views saying, I think the sport's gone through a transition since the day that I raced. You drop the green flag and you're into the checkered. Now they got all these different stages. I'm not sure I like it the way it is, but I watch. He goes and he doesn't feel great about the series going to street courses like the Chicago street course, and then now going to San Diego to run on a naval base this coming summer, albeit it's connected to the 250th year of the United States. He's of course comes from short track racing, and his name was made at Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway amongst others. He won a vast majority of his 84 Cup Series wins on tracks like Nashville, Bristol, Martinsville, quoted in saying, yes and no. I think the short tracks are what makes our sport what it is today. If it wasn't for the short tracks, I don't think we would be where we are. But I think the short tracks are certainly a big part of what we do today. Well, quite honestly, I think short tracks are the backbone of the sport. Nashville is certainly, it could be a Bristol, it could be like that. So I'm glad to see them bringing short tracks back. They need short tracks badly. I think that's probably in reference to a question that talked about North Wilkesboro Speedway coming back as a points race, the possibility of Nashville Fairgrounds Speedway maybe coming back as a race in the Cup Series instead of having as many road courses, instead of having as many 1.5 mile ovals on the schedule, probably to go more towards the old school feel of what NASCAR used to be relative to what NASCAR has become with this new next gen car. But if you have thoughts on what Darrell Waltrip said, leave them in the comments here. After an awesome throwback weekend that saw alumni, great drivers of the past all meet up at Darlington Raceway, here are some winners and losers from the Cup Series Goodyear 400 at the track Too Tough to Tame. First and foremost is Tyler Reddick, the driver, number 45 for 2311 Racing, winning his fourth race out of 6 to start the 2026 season, leading the second most laps on Sunday, was able to recover from alternator and battery issues, having to turn off a bunch of the systems within the car for creature comfort, to go out there, get his first win at Darlington, his 12th career victory, and extend his points lead to near 100 points over Ryan Blaney and over 100 points on his teammate Darrell Waltrip Jr. and co-car owner Denny Hamlin. Roush Fenway Keselowski Racing had a great day, great weekend, on a weekend where they celebrated the life of Greg Biffle with their paint schemes on all three of their race cars. Brad Keselowski looked like he had a real opportunity to get his first win in 2 years. Most recently won there in this race 2 years ago. But for Keselowski, recovering from his leg injury, getting both stage wins and leading the most laps after starting fifth, huge progress for that team. Chris Buescher finishing ninth at one of his better racetracks. Ryan Preece finishing 13th, but ran better than that for a good amount of the day. The RFK guys are all in the chase as of now. And it was a strong performance, continuing that with this new short track rules package. Aspire Motorsports is another team that seems to have gotten around this new short track rules package, because Carson Hocevar came from the tail after suffering damage in qualifying and was able to get all the way back to fourth by the end. And then his teammate Daniel Suarez post-incident with Ross Chastain at Las Vegas and all the back and forth about how they don't like each other. Well, Suarez is going out there and actually performing on a week-to-week basis in that number 7 for Spire Motorsports. The addition also, Chris Gabehart seemingly playing a part, I think, in that as well. On the flip side of that would be Richard Childress Racing. Both of their cars started in the top 10, Kyle Busch in 8th and Austin Dillon in 10th. However, they ended up 21st and 25th respectively, a lap down. Unfortunate after having a good qualifying run, showing some speed in practice, possibly to have an opportunity to have a good day like some of the other organizations had. But unfortunately for RCR, they have to go back to the drawing board there as they go to Martinsville before a week off for Easter. While Tyler Reddick stood out as winning the race, his teammates did not have as good of a day. Darrell Walsh Jr., Bubba Wallace started second, got fourth in stage 1, but had multiple pit road issues. They had issues with the car as well. Relegated him to a 34th place finish. Their young teammate Riley Herbst also ran relatively well for a good amount of the day, was up in the top 15, one of his better performances in general, but late in the race ended up losing time, having problems. He spun out on lap 198, bringing out the last yellow of the race, and then got into an incident, whether it was directly or indirectly, with fellow Toyota driver Chase Briscoe there late in the race. That affected Briscoe's final finishing position. While it's definitely been a slow start to this season for 2026 Cup Series rookie Connor Zillisch, at least with his run at Darlington this past weekend, getting another top 20 finish, a second of his rookie campaign, he has moved off of an unenviable spot, which is last place amongst all the regular drivers. Of course, Alex Bowman having issues with vertigo has rendered him last amongst regulars in the Cup Series standings, but he's only run 3 races. For the majority of this season, though, Connor Zillisch, amongst everybody else that has ran every other race, has been last. He even was spun out twice in Circuit of the Americas, where he got his best finish of the season and had to recover to get back there. But for the Trackhouse Racing driver, he doesn't have that label at the moment. He's moved up a few spots. Zillisch is considered, based on, just talking about what was in the article here by Asher Fair Beyond the Flag, talks about him as being one of the greatest prospects in NASCAR history, with some going as far as comparing the 19-year-old to Jeff Gordon. And similar to Jeff Gordon, there's been accidents, there's been mistakes for Zillisch, who's coming off of a great O'Reilly Series campaign last year, winning 10 races, finishing second in points. The driver who has moved into last in points is currently Cody Ware, driver for his father's team in the number 51 car. He finished 36th at Darlington this past weekend. He finished 36th last year in points, amongst amongst all the full-time drivers, with just 2 top 20s, 1 top 15. Through 6 races this year, his top finish is 17th, which was at the Daytona 500, and average finish is 28.2, which is the worst in the series aside from Bowman's 33rd over the 3 races he's run. Ware's average finish of 30.4 in 2025 is worse in the series by 4 full positions, behind Riley Herbst, who was 35th in points, and average of 26.4. Herbst, of course, was running well for a good amount of the race, but then did get in an incident with Connor Zillisch, which will be mentioned in another article. Ended up finishing around the back of the field there. Currently 27th in the standings, 35 points out of Ware, and has an average finish of 23.3. But in terms of who will be moving forward, we would try to leave it on a positive note here. see if Connor Zillisch can continue to make progress and see if even Cody Ware can do something on a short track. Hello, Motorsports Reports viewers. My name is Phil, and here are 5 drivers you need to watch out for the Martinsville Cup Series Cookout 400 this coming weekend. 37 drivers are on the entry list for this weekend's event. And going to emphasize certain organizations really with some of these names. First and foremost, I'm going with Ryan Blaney. He has been outstanding in recent years at Martinsville, been just an absolute machine at that racetrack over the past 5 years. In general, the driver of the number 12 for Penske Racing has been able to average a 5.6 average finish in the last 10 races with 2 wins, 6 top 5s and 7 top 10s, leading 516 laps along the way. His teammate Joey Logano has finished in the top 10 of the last 10 races at Martinsville with 3 top 5s and a 6.3 average finish. So generally, Penske Racing is someone to look at as an organization at this track. If there's a track that is synonymous with Hendrick Motorsports, it's where they won their first ever race way back in 1984 with Jeff Bodine. It is Martinsville. And, for William Byron, he has 3 wins there, 5 top 5, 7 top 10s, 664 laps led. You have Kyle Larson, who's won 1 race there with 7 top 5s and 8 top 10s with 2 poles, 6.2 average finish. And then would be remiss if I don't mention William Clyde Elliott II, aka Chase Elliott. 5 top 5s, 8 top 10s in the last 10 races, and a 7.7 average finish for the driver of the 9 car. So Hendrick Motorsports, when you go to Martinsville, is always going to be tough to beat. They had a 1-2-3 finish last year, I believe, or recently there. So Denny Hamlin, any Virginia race is essentially a home race because he's from Chesterfield, with 1 win, 6 top 5s in the last 10 races at Martinsville, with 1,114 laps led amongst that for the driver of the number 11 for Gibbs, and then co-owner of the car that I'm going to mention here in just a moment. The last but not least is Tyler Reddick. Now, he's won 4 of the first 6 races in the 2026 Cup Series season. He is someone that has been unstoppable on different types of tracks, goes out last week at Darlington, struggles, and is still able to come back, having electrical issues, battery charging issues, having the AC off, wins the race at Darlington, wins on a road course, has won super speedway races. Short tracks have not exactly been a strong suit for Tyler Reddick theoretically, and his average start at Martinsville over the last 10 races is 17.9 and average finish is 19.3 with 2 top 10s. However, at the end of the day, it's 5 drivers to watch. I think I've listed 7. So the fact is, we should list the guy that is the dominant presence in the points here early in the 2026 Cup Series season, and maybe this is an opportunity for a turnaround for him, since his teammate Bubba Wallace does very well at Martinsville over the years in different vehicles. So we'll see how that goes for all those drivers. Due to continued symptoms of vertigo, NASCAR Cup Series driver Alex Bowman will be missing the next 3 Cup Series events for Hendrick Motorsports and Ally in the number 48 Chevrolet. He will not be competing at Darlington this weekend, Martinsville, and then Bristol Motor Speedway post Easter break. Bowman had first started experiencing symptoms in the car during the race at Circuit of the Americas, and has missed the last 2 races at Phoenix and Las Vegas, first with Anthony Alfredo subbing at Phoenix, and then Justin Allgaier last weekend at Las Vegas. President and General Manager of Hendrick Motorsports, Jeff Andrews, said Alex continues to experience symptoms, so we are following the guidance of the medical team and giving him the time he needs to recover. We see how hard he's working to get back behind the wheel, and we're looking forward to his return when he's medically cleared. Everyone at Hendrick Motorsports is 100% behind Alex. Allgaier has Of course, been in the Cup Series in the past. He is an O'Reilly Series champion. He has won O'Reilly Series races at each of the next 3 race tracks that they're going to for the Cup Series. 3 at Darlington, 1 at Martinsville, 2 at Bristol. Andrews has said Justin is a true professional and someone we have tremendous confidence in. He's had success at the upcoming tracks, and we appreciate him stepping in to help the 48 team. We're also grateful to our partners at Junior Motorsports for understanding the situation and making Justin available. So in the end, for Bowman, who has had health concerns in the past and now is dealing with health with the vertigo, and in this case not being able to have your equilibrium while you're driving a race car is a major issue and concern. But of course, you're being able to live on a day-to-day basis and live your life has greater meaning than, driving a race car for Bowman. And for the 48 team, that even prior to all of this happening has had a slow start to the year. It essentially has opened up an opportunity for Bowman to get healthy, to feel better before he gets back into the race car, try to be 100%, and essentially be an R&D car for the organization as they learn the new Chevrolet body, as he gets his health, feels better physically in the car, and then he's able to go back and help his team with 3 guys that at the moment are all playoff eligible or in the playoff as of now, the chase format. But we will see how Alex Bowman progresses over these next few weeks post Easter and post Bristol, to see if he will be back in the Ally 48 car. Hope for recovery and that he'll be able to do so. And when he does that, we'll talk about it here on Motorsports Reports and also on the Gripstrip podcast, which I do with my co-host Josh on all podcast platforms.